welcome to the latest edition of Take 5, Amobi Commerce's interview series where we talk with experts in all things retail media to hear their perspectives on how the media landscape is changing and evolving. I'm Sarah Hughes, Head of Marketing at Amobi Commerce. Speaking with me today is Lauren Blass, SVP of Client Engagement at VML Y&R Commerce. Thanks for joining us, Lauren.
Thank you for having me. Super excited to chat with you.
Why do you think retail media has become such a hot topic lately?
Sure. So I'm not going to say anything groundbreaking. I feel like this is obvious, but I think because of COVID-19 and just the proliferation of online shopping, I think it's just completely changed the way that we view shopping in general, right? Like there are so many different venues now, and it's not just Amazon and it's not just Walmart. You have GoPuff. You have so many different places where you're able to shop. And you even think about the segments who are shopping now. It's not just me of like, the millennial mom. It's also boomers who are now in the market, right? And who are actually leveraging the different technology. So it really is. It's just reaching so many people that initially you would have never thought would leverage an online grocery or pickup and delivery.
That's what's been really interesting to me about kind of the growing e-commerce is usually when there's these trends that really pop off, it is just like usually Gen Z, millennials, kind of late Gen X that are driving this, but it really is like when you look at all the stats across the board, there's not really any one group that's not participating in e-commerce and even social commerce to a slightly lesser extent, but that was always really interesting to me how much it's been so widely adopted across demographics.
Yep, exactly. And I think too, you look and you see how much time these retailer media networks are putting into making these experiences more seamless and easy to use and easy to navigate. And so with that kind of ability, obviously more people are going to say, yes, this is actually a lot easier than I anticipated. I want to use this.
What do you think retailers can do to make their platforms more appealing to brands and agencies buying their media?
Sure. To me, I think the biggest piece is transparency and reporting. I think that a lot of times you get back just very, very high level reports. And I'd love to be able to double click in to say, how does this different audience segment behave? When are they shopping, right? So for instance, for me, I work on the Mondelez business, and that's obviously cookies and crackers. And so the way that I would go to Walmart.com and shop for cookies and crackers on a Sunday for my stock up trip as a mom of three is going to be a lot different than maybe you would shop for cookies or crackers for a party that you're putting in your cart on maybe like a Wednesday night for a party later in the week. So how can I get to a segmentation that helps me understand when you're shopping on the platform versus someone like me? And how can I dynamically change that creative to make sense, right? So for me, it would be, stock up on lunch trip or lunch items or snacks for kids versus you with maybe like some different party thematics or recipe ideas or something interesting like that. So I think for me, I would love just a little bit more flexibility with creative as well, in addition to the reporting of how can we just kind of think outside of the very limited parameters that we're in right now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And something I was wondering, since you're talking with a lot of CPG clients and a lot of the items that these brands represent are what a lot of people would kind of consider staple items, pantry staples. Are these brands approaching retail media differently, in your opinion, than like a laptop or a TV brand?
I mean, to be honest, I feel like everyone's trying to innovate and be creative, right? So, I mean, obviously with laptops and things like that, you think that they're going to be cutting edge. But I mean, the way that I would think about Mondelez is the exact same, right? Like, what are these test and learn opportunities that we can do? And I think for me, it's thinking beyond just retailer media networks and then also just thinking holistically about how we can leverage different media platforms to reach these shoppers and get them excited. Even though it is a pantry staple, how can we elevate that and make Oreo really cool? One of the things that we did for Target last year was an Oreo take back or stuff scan. So one of the insights that we learned was that in the sneaker world, a lot of black and white shoes are called the Oreo. And so we came up with an augmented reality experience where basically you could leverage the QR code to scan anything black and white, and then it would automatically give you a Roundel coupon. So I just think that things like that, we're trying to elevate our basic everyday household staples and make them interesting and kind of find fun tactics.
I feel like Mondelez is always really good at creating an experience around their brands instead of just trying to be transactional. And I think that's something that a lot of brands are going to need to think about doing in the future, because it can't just be buy my product, buy my product, buy my product. There has to be some sort of give and take. And even if it's like a faux conversation between a brand and the consumer, like there needs to be some sort of back and forth so that there's that connection with the brand. I think that's something that Mondelez is really, really great at.
Yeah, I think the humanity, I think one of the things that was really interesting that we did last year too was a Sing It With Oreo program, and it was heroed by Lady Gaga. So we had a limited edition Chromatica SKU, which was really fun. But this was kind of in the middle of the lockdown still, where friends and family couldn't be close together. And so we came up with Oreograms, and that was a way to share musical messages with friends and family. And so again, I think just finding like that human connection point and knowing that music kind of transcends and connects people, it's a really fun way that Oreo played into that. And we also leveraged the retailers in creating specific Oreograms for all of those retailers.
So you're kind of talking about how brands are working across multiple retail media networks. How are you advising brands to reach their audiences effectively if they're trying to divide budgets across 4 or 5 different retailers?
Sure. So right now it's interesting because I'm working with individual regions. So for me specifically, I'm only focusing on like West and reaching people within the Albertsons banners versus a Walmart that's kind of operating with a separate customer director. But I mean, for me, I think you think about that more as, you know, your on-site versus off-site strategy, right? Like you clearly have to have your on-site media and reach those people. But then what I love about using third parties is you get so much, not more necessarily, but you have more levers that you can pull in terms of audience segmentation and reaching those people and maybe getting additional people that you're not going to get on site. So, I mean, for me, I think it's always just kind of the mixture of not just running something specific to maybe, you know, Quotient with Albertsons or WMC. You really want that full 360 picture.
So as retail media continues evolving, how do you think brands and retailers can work together to really make good, positive consumer experiences?
Yeah. So I think it kind of goes back to what I was originally talking about of like, you've got this rich bed of data and you know how different people shop and the different times at which they shop. And so how can you have that dynamic creative that changes based upon who's shopping? And I think too, I'm sure you've seen in the news, Springdale and Walmart's test store in Springdale and all of the cool things that they're doing.
Yes.
I mean, all of these retailers sit on such a rich bed of data. And so how do you use that, you know, to not only marry up what you're doing online, but also how that informs in store? I think that that truly is the future. And I think that being able to go in and just for example, like if there is a Razorback section of the store, you know, with all of your different merch, and then you can see specifically someone approaching, and then it has some cool, you know, Oreo cookie dip or some kind of like different recipes that make sense. Like, how does that work in the future? You know, and I think that honestly, that's going to be where they can truly make a seamless experience in store and online for customers is by tapping into what really matters, right? The ratings and reviews and making those easily accessible, coming up with different solutions that matter. So again, like for me, having my kids at home in the summer, like how could they tap into me by providing different kind of like at-home camp type experiences to do with recipes. So those are kind of my 2 different areas that I think that they'll really want to lean into or plan to lean into in the future.
Last question. Where do you see the retail media space evolving over the next 1-5 years?
I mean, I think that you've already seen it with WMC taking everything in-house. You're seeing it now with Albertsons moving away from Quotient and taking it in-house. I think that ultimately everybody realizes, again, the power of the data that they have and they want it internally. And so I do think that the future is going to be this intersection of a better online experience, but then also, again, using that data that's being captured to inform what's happening in the store. And I do think you're going to have that more type of experiential environment again. And hopefully COVID will get to a better space where we do see more people going back into stores, these really cool retailtainment events. And so that's the future, at least, that I'm hoping to see.
Yeah, something I'm interested to see is how a lot of these retailers with the big brick and mortar footprint are going to translate kind of the in-store interactions to online addressable data, or even addressable data in store. So I think that's going to be an interesting space, kind of see how that addressability of data ends up kind of translating to in-store experiences.
Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I think is interesting, a little tidbit to share. But I mean, to be honest, I think for me, the biggest thing again is just being able to work outside of such strict guidelines. I know that obviously for all of the retailers, they want it to look clean, they want it to be easy, but wouldn't it be nice if you're spending so much money on a brand engagement page, for instance, to just have a little bit more flexibility outside of that template to help you with your storytelling? That's really what I'm looking for. Just, it's not always so cut and dry as just adding things into little spells, basically. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Lauren. We really appreciate you sitting down and talking with us about retail media today.
Yes, thank you. Great conversation.
Do you want to let our listeners know where they can find you on LinkedIn?
Yes, of course. I'm Lauren Blass on LinkedIn.
Great, and we'll be sure to tag Lauren in the post, so give her a follow to hear all about the great things that they're doing at VML Y&R Commerce.